My mom abandoned me when I was 4 years old and lied about it for 25 years. Now she has come begging me and is angry after I rejected her because I did this. It all began when I was very small, perhaps 4 years old, and my mother left me to live with my aunt after returning home with her husband and son. My original mother and father, as far as I know, eloped and were estranged from their families following their marriage. Since my father worked on the farm, my mother's family felt it was beneath them and not suitable for her to get connected with him at the time. My mother, nevertheless, was not going to give up. She then broke up with my dad and her family after 2 years of dating. In fact, her parents relocated to avoid having to deal with her. Thus, they didn't interact with her at all for the following few years. I was born after that, but regrettably my father died 6 months after I was born. My mother remained to live alone with me when he had an accident and never returned home. She had support from my dad's side of the family, but she never received any communication from her own parents or relatives. Despite her repeated attempts to get in touch with them, they never showed up when she was pregnant and never even bothered to be there for her. My aunt informed me after my dad died that my mother had finally found a job in sales and had moved in with her when I was a year old, the majority of the time. After a while, she began dating a co-worker, and 2 years after my dad passed away, she was married. However, I don't think he thought much of me, and my aunt told me he never really tried to get to know me. My mom then became pregnant again when I was about 3, and 9 months later, she gave birth to my brother. Sadly, my mom announced a few weeks after my brother was born that she was moving away to live with her parents, that she and her husband were going to start a new life, and that they would be joining her parents in the family business. As a result, I never had the chance to get to know my brother or form a link with him. The problem was that I was not going with them. My mother found it extremely distressing to recall the events involving my dad, and I served as a continual reminder of that. So they were leaving me with my dad's side of the family. She wanted to put everything that belonged in the past behind, now that she was beginning a new chapter in her life, and for some reason, that included me. At 4 years old, I had no concept that any of this was even happening. However, when I was older, my aunt told me that my mother and my grandparents used to fight a lot because they realized it was better for me to be with my mom and not them, even though they really wanted to keep me with them. Ever since my early years, I have required the guidance and support of my parents. My grandparents believed that my mother was being especially cruel by leaving me behind, and my aunt was much too young to become a parent and take on my duty. They attempted to convince my mother to take me with her despite their own wishes to keep me with them, but she was quite clear about what she wanted. She insisted that my aunt adopt me instead of taking me with her. Although my aunt felt that it was a significant commitment to make and that she needed more time to consider it, she informed me that she didn't mind because she had been caring for me in my mother's absence nevertheless. My mother was given the choice to either take me with her and be a decent mother, or to leave me behind and never see me again, even if it meant terminating her parental rights. Eventually, my grandparents were unable to handle it any longer. There is no prize for figuring out which choice my mother selected. Nevertheless, my mother went away with her husband and children after deciding to give up her parental rights, and I never saw her again. My aunt also thinks that because I was a daughter, and my mother having just given birth to a son with her husband, it was clear who would be the golden kid and why it was so simple for her to leave me. Given the traditional ideals of her family, it was not unexpected that my mother would uphold them. After that, I had a lot of questions about her and her absence from my life, and I didn't get the answers until I became 16. When I was approximately 13 or 14, my grandparents went away within a few years of each other, and ever then, it's just been my aunt and me. Since I was a young child, she has been my source of strength. My mother left when she was 23. Since Mom was the one who encouraged me in all of my pursuits and ensured that I never felt like I was without my family, it was only natural for me to attribute all of my success to her in that interview. She was the one who supported me and who paid for me to attend college when I first realized I had a passion for fashion. There was no money in it for the first few years when I resigned my job a few years ago to start making content on Instagram, but my aunt believed in me, and I don't think I could have succeeded without her. And since I honestly didn't anticipate that anyone who didn't already know about my condition would watch or read my interview in the first place, I felt that now that I'm successful, I could share this. I opened up completely about my family, my challenges, and my progress. Throughout everything, my grandparents were the ones who gave me the most support. I suppose that didn't sit well with my mother and her husband because, well, it depicted them in a very negative light. I was rather honest. My mother had moved out, as had my maternal grandparents. Since they were just getting started and their audience was somewhat small and localized, I suppose the fact that many of their relatives still resided in this area is how they learned about the interview. Nevertheless, my mother's family began to detest her as soon as they learned the real reason why she had left me behind. It seems that the version of the story I told in my interview is different from what they told their family members. Therefore, they now believe that I should make a public statement to repair the damage to their reputation. My grandparents and my aunt were unwilling to let me go, which is why my mother and her husband had informed family members they had to leave me behind. They didn't want to confuse me by involving me in a custody dispute because I seemed to be rather attached to them as well, especially because I had recently lost my father at such a young age. It was evidently untrue when my mother said she would be sending money to my aunt in order to assist me. She had also promised her family that she would make an effort to talk to me and see them when I turned 16, in the absolute least. However, she didn't even show up when I turned 16. She recently informed the other members of the family that she had spoken with me and that I had refused to visit or interact with them. So she lied that she had really tried to get in touch with me in order to appease her family and appear like the nice guy. However, it was my aunts and grandparents who forbade it, and when I reached adulthood, she shifted the blame to me. After 25 years of lying, all of this had now come to light, and her family members were severing their connections with her, upsetting even her own parents. And for that reason, she had finally contacted me on social media to discuss this with me after nearly 25 years. She did not even bother to phone me. Instead, she left me a message on my Instagram account, stating that while she could understand that I was feeling betrayed and all that, she had expected better from me, and that this behavior of airing our dirty linen was inappropriate. She informed me that she was receiving a lot of criticism for her actions, and that people were still holding her responsible for them, even though it had been 25 years. She wants me to take care of some damage control, even if she believes they don't deserve any of this right now and I'm successful. What irritated me, though, was her act of pretending as though she was angry with me or even had a legitimate reason to be angry. She was the one who had abandoned me all those years ago and was, well, just an all-around awful person in addition to being a horrible mother. She therefore had no right to appear as though she was upset with me and inform me that I needed to repair part of the damage to her reputation. If her family was no longer fond of her, it was due to her behavior, not mine. I immediately grabbed a screenshot of that message and put it on my story, rather than sending an apology. Not even a caption or anything was written by me. I simply left it there after posting the screenshot. I have no idea what I was intending to accomplish, but I simply wanted everyone to know that my mother was a horrible person and that nothing will ever be able to change that before a very long time. My mother sent me a ton of other letters, complaining that she already had enough hate from her own family and didn't need it from my followers, and for me to try to dox her in this way was incredibly immoral. Since this is so clearly not doxing, I don't even think she understands what it means. I told her that she probably shouldn't have behaved the way she did if she didn't want other people to believe that she was a nasty person. I also informed her that, contrary to what she was attempting to portray, I did not air out any dirty linen. I had just discussed my early years and my own experiences. The fact that she appeared so awful in it was not my responsibility. She was to blame for that. Even so, she persisted in believing that it was improper for me to expose her and was unwilling to accept that she was to blame for this. Understanding that I have a sizable following in an interview such as this one, I'm thinking about genuinely apologizing or anything now that I'm starting to second-guess what happened, as I'm all for using my platform for the greater good, and even if it was an unintentional occurrence. I don't want to be the type of person that takes advantage of their position to exact revenge on others, even if I didn't mean to do it. In the event that it has occurred, I want people to know that I apologize, but I also believe that my mother is a bad person and doesn't deserve an apology. Furthermore, it's not my fault that her lies are being exposed. Thus, in an interview with a local magazine editor, I revealed my mother. Hello. I'm not sure why my relatives, who are still in the same city, choose not to get in touch with me. My mother had, I believe, informed them that my dad's side did not want them to get in touch with me or meet me. In addition, I believe it's important to remember that my mother's family did not initially approve of my father and me being in a relationship. Thus, it has already taken them many years to accept it, despite the current state of affairs that has been established. Considering that my mother abandoned me when I was a child and then made up a lot of falsehoods to hide her shortcomings, I don't think they're angry with her. I believe that the reason behind their anger is not so much that she failed to fulfill her responsibilities as a woman, but rather something equally absurd. It goes without saying that she is the reason their family's reputation will be tarnished in any case. At this point, I truly don't care what her relatives think of her. Although I am aware that they are also my relatives, I do not view them as family because I have never had any interaction with them in my life. They haven't even gotten in touch with me yet. They have merely used this as a pretext to begin detesting my mother. Therefore, I don't really care what people think. But I have to consider it if my mother is calling me out of that interview because of their hatred. I guess right now everything is just unclear. I have no idea how to feel about anything, and being contacted by my mother after all these years is making me feel much worse. To be honest, my aunt doesn't believe that I did anything improper. I only talked about what I've experienced. That way, at least one person supports me. Furthermore, my friends think there's more going on here than just my mother's bruised sentiments. Therefore, I don't have to be responsible for her feelings. In any case, I will have to decide this on my own in the end. First update. I've made the decision to stick by everything I said throughout the interview. I will not provide an apology. I will not take back my words or attempt to restore my mother's honor. To be honest, at the time, I had no intention of damaging my mother's reputation. I was just sharing my experience. Actually, at this moment, neither am I intending to do that. That was entirely incidental. And since it wasn't my fault, I don't feel bad about it. I've been able to see it through the comments. Almost everyone I've spoken to concurs that my mother is to blame and that she ought to have anticipated this. There is nothing for me to feel guilty about. In fact, she probably wouldn't have had to deal with any consequences at all if I hadn't succeeded and given the interview. And the only reason she finally got in touch with me was because her deception was discovered. I will thus stop criticizing myself for what transpired. I make responsible use of my platform, and whatever it is that she's currently dealing with as a result of her own choices, not mine. On social media, I've blocked her and posted an article letting my followers know that I don't want them to harass my mother or anybody else. I'm not sure if that will truly deter them, but at least I've fulfilled my responsibility and won't be sending anyone after her. Actually, a lot of people thought that I had sent hate mail to my mother from my followers after her, when I shared that screen grab of the text message she had written me. In reality, though, I had erased her username and hidden her profile photo. Thus, it would take a lot of detective effort for someone to locate her account, and I'm assuming that was done by some of my more curious or compulsive followers. Or perhaps my mother was lying when she claimed that I was the reason behind the hatred she saw in my followers, following everything that has transpired. If she had been lying, I wouldn't be shocked. Anyway, that's resolved now. It hasn't helped to block her. She hasn't stopped pestering me through multiple Instagram profiles, urging me to take action regarding the interview or at the very least provide her with an explanation. She has also been emailing me frequently, but that doesn't make a difference in her circumstances. I'm hoping she quickly understands it and stops harassing me. I'm just trying to forget about everything and go about my life the way I used to for the time being. Since my mother reached out to me, I've been fairly irritated and irritable, so I really need to get myself back on track. All of this has really screwed with my emotional and mental condition. Hello to the second update. Nearly 2 weeks have passed since that interview and the beginning of the drama. I literally lost my mind when I received the legal notice that I was being sued for defamation today, since, in my opinion, expressing the truth is not grounds for defamation. To be completely honest, I didn't even mention my mother during that interview. Sincerely, I don't blame my relatives for watching me and determining what transpired. I'm just sick of getting pulled into this drama repeatedly. I chose to talk to my aunt, and we are going to try and give my mother one chance to withdraw that lawsuit since we don't want to spend our time with the legal proceedings. I've spoken with my lawyer, and we will answer shortly. This is a false case. Everyone is aware of it. She only wants to draw attention to it and give the impression that she is the one in this situation. And the bad guys are us. Since I don't really know my relatives, I honestly don't give a damn about them. She can keep giving them the same lies that she has been giving them for a long time. For all that matters to me. All I want is for her to stop harassing me. Thus, I chose to give her a call. In one of her previous emails, she had given me her phone number and stated that I could reach her there to finally end this conflict. I suppose she has overlooked that. Anyway, my aunt and I had a conversation with her during which we informed her that we were offering her one more opportunity to terminate this, as she was aware that it would not lead to any success. Rather than back down, though, she became enraged and began yelling at us over the phone, telling us that our attempts to scare her into keeping her mouth shut would not work because she would no longer be silent about the harassment she was subjected to as a result of me. My aunt advised me not to dispute with her since it would just serve to reinforce their position and prove my mother's point. So that chat went nowhere, and we hung up after a few minutes. I then banned that phone so that even if she wanted to, she would not be able to get in touch with me after this. It appears that a court hearing is imminent, so my attorney and I had better get ready. It would definitely come in useful that my aunt has also got me in touch with the lawyer who handled all the paperwork for her to obtain custody of me after my mother revoked her parental rights. Yes, I'm prepared for a fight so that she may initiate it. Update 3. My mother consistently reaches new lows, and it's so absurd that I no longer find it surprising. The legal process has begun, and our initial goal is to reach a resolution through mediation. Furthermore, as we reside in different states, everything of our business must be done online. Even yet, managing her has been difficult since, when something does not go her way, she physically loses her mind and becomes savage. Additionally, because to the way she starts acting, the mediator has had to finish our sessions much earlier than necessary thus far. To be honest, I think she could be a little crazy, but that's not really important to me. I am here to discuss the fact that, thus far, everything has gone really well for me. This is not surprising at all, as my aunt and I are aware of the reality, though I imagine my mother is not at all pleased about it, because, for very apparent reasons, a number of my friends and followers emailed me an account on Instagram called Exposing My Username on Instagram Today. I'm not allowed to reveal my login to you guys, but I was astonished and realized right once that my mother was responsible for this. On that account, there were a few postings, all of which contained numerous lies about me. Naturally, she was the one responsible for it. The first post simply stated that everything I had said during my interview was false, and she then went on to disseminate her own lies, claiming that my aunt and grandmother had insisted that she leave me behind and that she was not to blame. It was quite hypocritical of me to be harping on about embracing yourself as you are and things like that, when she was clearly lying about my appearance in the second article, claiming that I had had a nose surgery done when I was 16. That is completely untrue, and I believe that everyone who knows me is aware of the fact that I have never needed surgery. However, her most recent post infuriated me to the point where my lawyer and I are now preparing to countersue her for defaming my father and me. In that post, she implied that my father's family had ostensibly forced her to isolate herself and cut off contact with them while she was pregnant. My father had also participated in all of this. She asserted that because my father, his family, and even me had proven to be incredibly abusive, my mother had left me behind and did not want to continue to be involved with them. Her previous article was incredibly foolish on many levels. Not only did it reveal her identity, my mother is the only person who could have such private information, but it also negated the very argument she was attempting to make. She attempted to pretend in her initial post that she was a good mother, and that the reason she had left me behind with my grandparents and aunts was because they had made her. She persisted in saying that she would have brought me along, but she didn't want to uproot me from my familiar surroundings and confuse me when I was a child. And in her most current blog entry, she was attempting to paint a picture of my father, my aunt, and my grandparents as terrible individuals who drove her to distance herself from her own family. Then, given that she was aware that these individuals were not moral people, why would she leave her own daughter in their care? People weren't stupid, and she had just contradicted herself. She was apprehended by them. Many others in the section began to doubt the veracity of these posts. She had disabled comments as well, and I have a good feeling that she will remove this account entirely. Since this will undoubtedly aid her lawsuit, I have screenshotted every post, every remark, and everything else I can. I'm not going to drop the lawsuit I'm preparing to file against her. Even if she drops the one she filed against me, she must come to understand that her actions have repercussions and that she must take responsibility for them. My aunt nearly started crying when I showed her the post she had written because it was awful enough that she was attempting to discredit us despite the fact that none of us had done anything. She had descended to the point that she was disparaging my father, who had passed away. Additionally, my aunt informed me that during their relationship my mother fell deeply in love with him. It was therefore quite low and repulsive of her to try to make him out to be the villain. It also saddened me because, despite the fact that I was never truly acquainted with my father, He died when I was 6 months old. I've always thought he would have made a wonderful man, and my aunt has always assured me of this. Therefore, I will not permit my mother, of all people, to defame him. Anyway, my lawyer and I have discussed this, and we want to see this through to the end. Until I get proof that she is truly sorry, more so than she has ever been in her life, I won't let this go. I'm going to see to it that those that require correction are taken care of right away. Fourth update. You do recall that I previously threatened to sue my mother for the posts that she was posting using that fictitious account? Yes, I did succeed. She chose to withdraw the lawsuit she had filed against me as soon as she was served, and then sent me an email asking me to do the same. She also promptly deleted the account she had created just as I had anticipated. I was not going to back down, as I had stated. This war she started, but I will win it. I replied to her email by telling her that we would only be communicating with each other through our lawyers from now on, so trying to get in touch with me directly would just bring her more problems. Because I'm a totally different person from her, I never had any parental rights over me, and I wanted nothing to do with her at all. I shouldn't have to. I owe her nothing. She didn't listen to me, of course. She begged me again via email to withdraw the case and assured me that she would never bother me again, but I was now so enraged with her that I wanted retribution. Most importantly, I don't think I need to forgive her right away because she had said some fairly awful things about my father. I also promised her that I wouldn't change my mind so she could be anything she wants to be. I've made up my mind what I want, and that is for her to pay the price for what she did. My aunt agrees with me completely on this as well. I won't be posting an update until everything is all finished because I will be busy for the next few weeks. I hope it's soon. I hope all of you cross your fingers as much as I do. Update number 5. Hello to all of you. After 2 arduous months, we are finally done with the case. As promised, I would give an update only after I was finished. The fact that my mother and her attorney fought so hard to keep this going for 2 months in the first place is most likely due to their skill, but the facts were on our side. As a result, they had to settle with us for a hefty sum of money. It was a very big win, too, even though I'm pretty successful and don't really need it. Another thing that happened was that my brother eventually messaged me on social media. He told me that he had been hearing from several family members for a very long time, but he was unsure of whom to believe because he had his parents on one side and a sister he didn't even know existed on the other. However, after learning the truth, he made the decision that he wanted to get to know me and develop a connection with me. At first, I was a little dubious, but this is all his fault. I therefore made contact with him and offered to talk to him. We had just had lunch together once thus far, and we got along wonderfully. We're getting there, but there were still a lot of unresolved questions and unspoken things. We will become great friends after the discomfort goes away, I'm sure of it. Right now, I'm pretty satisfied with everything because it's all working out for the best. Though not in the way I had anticipated, I think that interview truly opened up a lot of opportunities. Still, it went pretty well.